You're listening to Flip Empire, the show committed to helping real estate entrepreneurs who want to build their empire without sacrificing their life. Your success and freedom starts now with your host, Alex Pardo.
On today's podcast episode, I want to talk to you about why you may be hitting your head with an income ceiling and why it is you feel you can't break through that next level, whatever that may be for you as far as making more money in your business. So with that being said, my name's Alex Pardo. I've been the host of the Flip Empire show here we're coming up on 7 years in just 3 or 4 months, which is insane. It's crazy. And that's due to you. If you're not subscribed to the podcast, make sure you check us out on Apple Podcast, Spotify, and all the other platforms where podcasts are held. You can watch them or listen to them there. So with that being said, I want to make this episode all about you. You know, we're coming up here almost at the end of January. Before you know it, 1/12 of the year is behind us. And if you've gone out and you've set out goals, you know, a lot of people focus on financial goals. And one of the things I want to encourage you to do is look at the amount of money that you've made in the previous 5 years and ask yourself, are you making more money each and every year? Is it a roller coaster? Maybe you're making less money than you'd like to make. Whatever the case might be, I want to share with you why I think you're hitting an income ceiling and what you need to do, more importantly, to break through that income ceiling. Now, you might be listening to this and maybe you make $50,000 a year or $30,000, or maybe you're listening to this and you make $5 million a year. It doesn't really matter how much money you make, but the concepts and principles and the framework, the thought process and the mindset I'm going to share with you is something you can do, I think, very quickly and implement very quickly, just a shift in mindset so that you can break through that income ceiling and start making more money. Understand, obviously, and I'm Captain Obvious here with what I'm about to say, each and every one of us have 24 hours in a day. Elon Musk has the same 24 hours that I have and that you have. So one of the things I've been thinking about very strategically and tactically lately is where I am spending my time, right? And I'm not just talking about where I'm spending my time in my personal life, but where I'm spending time business-wise. Just recently, I went through an exercise with a couple of my businesses, and it took about an hour and a half. So it's definitely worth the time investment. But with the different businesses I'm involved in, the different buckets where I allocate my time from a business perspective, I started breaking down, like, I say my time is worth X amount of dollars an hour, but let's actually stress test that. Let's put it to the test and let's see if in fact I'm making what I think I'm making, if I'm making more, or am I making less? So I actually went through a process where I broke down the business and I said, okay, where is it that this business requires my time, energy, and attention? And I also allocated a bucket to mental bandwidth. You might not be thinking that you need to allocate time towards mental bandwidth, but if it takes up space in your mind, that's time that you're spending on the business, whether you realize it or not, and it needs to be allocated for. So I really started thinking about this particular business. Where is it that I'm spending my time? Whether it's communicating with people, whether it's creating content, whether it could even be replying to an email. And I was on the conservative side, meaning if I think I'm spending half an hour, I bumped it up a little bit just to account for, you know, just anything I'm not thinking about or not catching, right? And it's interesting. I thought in this particular business, I was making over $1,000 an hour. And that wasn't the case. I was making $619.37. I believe is the exact number. So I was making significantly less per hour than I thought I was making. And then I started to look at where I'm spending my time. And again, I go back to this. I think I referenced this on a podcast episode not too long ago. And I've definitely dedicated podcast episodes on this. I started to go through the process of what I preach and what I've shared with a lot of our Ascend members and people that have reached out to me from the podcast is, what is it that I can delegate, outsource, automate, or completely delete, right? And if it doesn't fall into one of those categories, is it something I enjoy doing that maybe I may not want to delegate, automate, or outsource? And I quickly identified areas where I no longer need to be doing this. And so that led me down the rabbit hole of thinking about the word leverage and thinking about execution. In order for me to get from where I am today to where I want to go, and more importantly, forget about me, where you are today and where you want to go is number one, I think you have to have a certain amount of awareness. and you got to be honest with yourself. Where are you today? Ask yourself, how much is my time worth? And then I want you to think about your current business or businesses, and I want you to break it down, like actually write it out on a piece of paper and say, hey, here is where I'm spending my time. And then look at your tax return, right? Or look at how much revenue you generated, and more importantly, how much you actually kept, right? Look at your net income, and then do the simple math. How much money you made in that business relative to the amount of time you spent. That is your true worth per hour, broken down. Now, again, don't go through this exercise and cheat yourself. If you know you spend 10 hours a week doing this, and it's a pretty good ballpark, don't cheat yourself and say, hey, I'm probably spending 3 or 4, right? Because then you're going to come up with an inflated number that isn't your reality. It might make you feel good, but it's actually not going to do anything for getting you from where you are to where you're going. One of the things that I think you're going to realize as you go through this process is that you're spending time in areas where you could easily delegate, outsource, or automate that process and get someone or some system to do it for significantly less than what your time is worth. In my example, when I realized that, hey, I'm actually not making over $1,000 an hour in this business, I'm making $618 and change, or $619. I started to say, okay, well, what would need to shift? What would I need to get off my plate and onto somebody else's plate in order to significantly make more than what I'm making now? Well over $1,000 an hour. That leads me to a conversation I had with a really good friend of mine who owns a lot of assets. He's generating close to $40,000 a month in residual recurring revenue. And by most people's standards, that's a lot of money. He's making almost $40,000 a month in recurring revenue. And yet what's interesting is that we were on a mastermind call, and he was sharing with us how he hasn't been able to find the right person to run basically his portfolio. He essentially hasn't found, he wants to hire almost, think of like a district or a regional manager, like a portfolio manager. He wants to find the right person, a rock star, to oversee all of his assets. And so we started asking him, I said, where are you spending your time? Where are you looking for these people? Walk us through your process. And as he was doing that, mind you, this is an incredibly sharp individual, but when we're in our own mess, it's hard to see outside of what's going on. And in just 5-10 minutes, we were quickly able to identify opportunities that he hadn't taken advantage of. And oftentimes it just requires a shift in our thinking. And then sometimes it's not our thinking. Sometimes it's just, it's strategy and it's tactical, right? And that may be the case for you, but what was holding him back was ultimately self-sabotage. I noticed in his language and the way he was communicating that he kept throwing up barriers for why that person wasn't out there. And what it boiled down to was self-sabotage. And the reason he was self-sabotaging was because he didn't have clarity around the long-term goal. He knew he wanted to grow, but he didn't know how much he wanted to grow by. And this particular business that he's in, there's seasons where it requires a heavy push and it requires his time and energy, or that of a regional manager or a property portfolio manager. And then there's times where the guy's like chilling, like doing nothing, like just relaxing. And so he's like, oh, I don't know if I should hire a part-time person or a full-time person. Like, I don't know if I need it. And then I just asked him, I said, dude, how much money did you make last year? And it was a very high number. And he answered that. And I said, okay, well, you're telling me in this business, you're generating almost 40 grand. And by the way, this guy's got no reason to lie to me. And I'm pretty intimate with his portfolio. And I actually thought he was making more than close to 40 grand a month, but it's somewhere between 30 and 40 grand a month. I'm not talking about revenue here. I'm talking about net, almost 40 grand a month. I said, dude, based on what you made last year and based on what this business generates, what's your hour worth? And he kind of like paused and thought about it. And he knows me, so he knew where I was going with it. And he answered it. Well, we actually did the math. I said, how many hours do you think you spend on this particular business? And we did the math. And his time was worth significantly more in this case than what he was even giving himself credit for. I said, well, what are we talking about here? Like, let's say you overpaid for this portfolio property manager. Let's say you just completely overpaid. how much money do you think that person would cost you? And by the way, it's not a cost, it's an investment, but I'll get to that in a second. I said, what do you think you would invest in this person if you completely overpaid? And he gave me the number, and it was a tiny fraction of what this dude makes in a year, like a tiny fraction. I said, okay, well, if you were to hire this person, how much of your time would you get back? And more importantly, how much of your mental bandwidth would you get back? Mind space, where you're not because by the way, we've had this conversation for close to a year now about finding this person. I said, dude, if I could completely if I could wave the magic wand at you, eliminate and free up that mind space, put a rock star to manage your portfolio, and you had a short 5-10 minute daily huddle with this person, you had a weekly meeting with this person, and that's it. How much time would that save you? It was hundreds of hours in a year. And I said, okay, well, multiply, grab your calculator. What's the 150 hours you think you'd save in a year times what? And it was astronomical, the amount of money that he would make by freeing up the time relative to what the investment would be in hiring that person. So I really want you to think, and hopefully that story hits you between the eyes. Think about your business. Think about where you're spending time, and then ask yourself, because I have conversations with people that are challenged to hire people. Now, look, if you don't want to grow into this big team, that's perfectly fine. Right now, I'm in a stage where I don't want to hire a bunch of people and have this big, massive team. That's just not the kind of business I'm looking to build at this time. But I still work with people, and I still leverage other people to handle certain things that either I don't like to do or want to do, or things that are just well below what I earn per hour. And then the other thing that really got me as I've been thinking about time and where I'm spending it, because believe me, there's areas where I'm spending time where I don't need to be. As an example, today, now in the future, probably 2, 3, 4 episodes from now, I'll probably do an episode on this. My assistant, who's a rock star, she's amazing in every way. I love her to death. She challenged me because when we hop on Zoom, she sees my email inbox, and my email inbox is a disaster. Like I'm very organized, but when it comes to paperwork and when it comes to my email, let's just say there's a lot of room for improvement. I am not the best. My email, in fact, let me just share with you right now. I have 20,750 emails in my inbox. Now, keep in mind, 99% of those are just absolute junk, but I need a system. And so she challenged me. She's like, Alex, give me a little bit of time to learn the zero inbox method, and let me take over your inbox. I said, done, let's do it. So today, in fact, literally in 10 minutes, once I stop recording this particular podcast episode, we have an hour-long Zoom where we're going to dissect, and she's going to implement the zero inbox strategy for me. I have been wanting to do this for years, but I haven't made or carved out the time to do this because I know it's not a good use of my time. 1, 2, I don't enjoy it. In fact, I try to figure out everything else to do. And in the meantime, every single month, my emails continue to accumulate and accumulate and accumulate and accumulate. If you're listening to this and you know me, you're probably chuckling or laughing because this is the one area, like communicating with me via email. While I'm a strong communicator, it's seeing it and getting to it, right? Again, it's an area that I recognize as a weakness that I'm leveraging somebody else who that happens to be her strength. And I'm going to completely turn this around because I've come to recognize that while I may not think it's impacting me, it takes up some bandwidth between my ears. And just that alone is robbing from me and stealing from me of being the best version I can be in every single area of my life. So think about that. Where are you spending your time? What's robbing you of mental energy and bandwidth that you could implement a process, a system, or leverage somebody else who actually enjoys to do that, so that you can get it off your plate and so that you can free yourself up. So I'm looking forward to reporting in, 3-4 weeks, a month or so, how zero inbox is working for me. And then more importantly, how it's freed me up to focus on other things that are more important so that I can continue to drive up what my time is worth and where I'm spending my time. so that I can do the things that I enjoy doing, that give me joy, fulfillment, and that have honestly the greatest impact on others. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this episode off short. As you can tell, I'm sharing just kind of from my heart here, and hopefully it wasn't too scattered. Hopefully you're able to take this episode, maybe even listen to it again. I would really encourage you. Lately, I've been doing that rather than going wide with a lot of different podcasts and books. I'm trying to go deep on certain ones, and I'm re-watching, re-listening, rereading things that I think are very valuable and areas that I want to continue to improve in. So with that being said, if you want to elevate, or better word, if you want to ascend in business, in life, ascendyoursuccess.com is a mastermind community of entrepreneurs and real estate investors who just push each other, hold each other accountable, walk alongside each other. So ascendyoursuccess.com if you want to connect with us about that. And with that being said, I look forward to connecting with you on the next podcast episode. Have an incredible day, my friends. If you haven't heard this recently, you can do it. I got your back. I may not know you, but just the fact that you've invested 16, 17 minutes to listen to this podcast episode tells me you want a better life, you want a better business, and it's well within your grasp. I think you just got to believe in yourself. You gotta implement, and you gotta execute. You gotta be somebody who executes. Okay. Think about where you're spending your time, and hopefully this helps you moving forward. Have an incredible day, and I will talk to you soon. Hope you enjoyed that episode. But before you go, I've had a lot of people recently reach out to me wanting to learn more about Ascend, wanting to understand how the mastermind component works, how the coaching relationship works. And so right now we're actually on a waiting list. But what I would encourage you to do is, if you think you're the right fit and you think you could benefit from being a part of our community, head over to ascendyoursuccess.com, watch the short video, and then just click the apply to join button below. And then we'll be in contact with you if and when a spot opens up. So really appreciate you listening to Flip Empire here, and I look forward to connecting with you on the next show. Take care.